Ever had a Costco trip go from rotisserie chicken run to full-blown crime scene in 60 seconds flat? That was my Tuesday. Picture this. I'm cruising the paper towel aisle minding my own business when a blood-curdling scream rips through the warehouse. I turn just in time to lock eyes with a woman who looks like she's been in a cage match with a raccoon and lost. Her face is twisted in fury, her arms stretched toward a top shelf like it personally wronged her. For a split second I think, wow, someone's having a day. Then she whips around, spots me, and boom, my peaceful bulk shopping trip just became a front row seat to the wildest meltdown Costco's ever seen. That flicker died a swift, painful death the moment I got within earshot. Before I could even fully process what she was doing, she spun around, her eyes locking onto me with the laser focus of a predator. "Excuse me," she snapped, jabbing a finger at the elusive item. "You get that down for me, now." Oh boy, here we go. I've seen enough I don't work here lady stories to recognize the signs. My internal alarm bells were clanging. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't actually work here." I gestured vaguely at my completely non-Costco attire, just a regular t-shirt and jeans. Then, as is my well-practiced custom, I started to politely disengage and walk away. But this woman wasn't having it. "Don't you lie to me," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the warehouse ceiling. "You're wearing a blue shirt, you work for Costco. Get over here and do your job." She actually followed me, her voice ratcheting up in volume, listing all the reasons she knew I worked there and how utterly useless I was being. I tried to explain again calmly that I was just a customer, but it was like talking to a brick wall made of pure indignation. I figured the best thing to do was just get out of her orbit, so I sped up, heading straight for the checkout lines. I picked one that looked promising, mentally calculating my escape. I was maybe 2 people deep when I felt a shove from behind. "Hey," I turned to see her, the same badger wrestler, glaring at me. "I was here first, move." My jaw just about hit the floor. "Are you kidding me?" I exclaimed, the last vestiges of my patience evaporating. "First you harass me in the aisle, then you follow me to the checkout, and now you're trying to cut in front of me. Get to the back of the line and learn some basic manners." That's when she really went nuclear, her face contorted into a mask of pure venom. "Oh, so now you're going to be racist," she screeched, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You're calling me a racial slur. I can't believe this. I'm going to have your job." I actually recoiled. "What? No, I didn't say anything like that. Are you insane?" The accusation was so out of left field, so completely unhinged, it momentarily stunned me into silence. People in line were staring, some pulling out phones, their faces a mix of horror and morbid curiosity. Luckily, all the shouting had attracted attention. A young Costco employee, clearly hearing the word racist, rushed over, followed closely by a store manager, a formidable woman with an expression that said she'd seen it all. "What's going on here?" the manager asked, her voice calm but firm, cutting through the woman's continued ranting about my supposed racism. This man, Karen, because who else could it be, pointed wildly at me. He refused to help me, he called me a liar, he followed me, and then he just called me a racial slur for trying to get in line. The manager looked at me, then at my clothes, then back at Karen. "Ma'am," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly, "this gentleman doesn't work for Costco. He's wearing plain clothes, and I've never seen him in uniform." She then turned to the young employee who confirmed, "Yeah, he's just a customer. I saw him in the paper aisle." Karen's face went from enraged to absolutely apoplectic. "This is outrageous. I'm a loyal customer. I demand you do something about him." The manager, completely unfazed, crossed her arms. "Ma'am, for harassing a customer, falsely accusing him, and creating a scene, your Costco membership is revoked. You need to leave the store immediately." A quiet gasp went through the line. Karen, for her part, looked like she'd been told her firstborn was actually a turnip. "You can't do that," she shrieked, stamping her foot like a toddler. But the manager wasn't budging. 2 other employees, burly guys from the back, were already moving in. As they gently but firmly started escorting her towards the exit, Karen spun back towards me, her face contorted in pure, unadulterated hate. "And you," she spat, her voice a piercing shriek. "You actual racial slur this time." I just stood there completely numb, watching the whole ridiculous circus unfold. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but that one felt different. It was the final, ugly flourish on an already deranged performance. But the show wasn't over. As she reached the main doors in one last, desperate act of defiance, she ripped her purse from her shoulder and hurled it straight at the manager. It glanced off the manager's shoulder with a surprisingly loud thud. That was it. The manager didn't even flinch, just gestured to the burly employees. Moments later, I saw actual police officers entering the store. Karen was being cuffed right there by the entrance, still screaming about her rights and discrimination. I finally made it to the checkout, still a bit shaky. As I paid, I couldn't help but grab one of those Costco hot dogs and a soda. I found a bench near the exit where I could enjoy my meal and watch the final act of Karen's meltdown as she was led into a squad car. It was surreal. I'm no hero, just a guy who wanted some bulk paper towels. But standing there, hot dog in hand, watching a full-on arrest at Costco, I couldn't help but feel a weird mix of vindication and disbelief. Who knew my unassuming t-shirt could spark such a spectacular collapse? Until next time, stay sane out there, r/IDontWorkHereLady. And maybe, just maybe, double-check that uniform before you snap.
This next one had Reddit losing its mind. Quick pause, subscribe now, because the chaos doesn't stop here.
You ever just try to be a decent human being, lend a hand, and suddenly find yourself accused of attempted murder? Yeah, me too. This isn't one of those oops, I forgot my wallet stories. This is a holy crap, did that just happen kind of tale. It was Black Friday or some equally insane shopping holiday, and I was pulling a double at this busy restaurant just outside the mall. The whole place was a zoo. Management was running around like headless chickens, snapping at everyone, and frankly, my brain was just fried. I needed a break, a proper milkshake, maybe even just 5 minutes of peace. So I offered to do a coffee run for the crew. You know, good karma, right? Ended up with 6 drink orders scribbled on a napkin, and off I went to the coffee shop next door. That coffee shop, even more of a zoo. The lines snaked out the door and around a display of artisanal dog biscuits. I waited patiently for what felt like an eternity, finally got the order placed, and then waited again for them to actually make the damn things. When my bounty of sugary goodness was finally ready, I scooped it all up and headed over to the condiment station, juggling cups like a pro. One of the orders needed a good 4 packets of sugar, but the caddy was completely bone dry. I scanned the counter, saw the baristas were absolutely slammed, basically drowning in a sea of espresso and demanding customers. No way they had time for a sugar refill. My brain, bless its helpful little heart, goes, "Hey Kai, if you worked here, you'd probably stash the extra supplies in those cabinets under the counter." It made perfect sense. So I knelt down, pulled open one of the lower cabinets, and bingo, a fresh stack of sugar packets. Just as I was reaching in to grab them, a voice, sharp and icy, cut through the din. "Excuse me, do you work here?" I glanced up, a bit startled. A woman, probably in her late 50s, stood over me, arms crossed, face like thunder. No, I don't," I replied, a little confused. "Then what exactly do you think you're doing rummaging through their private cabinets?" she demanded, her voice rising slightly. "Oh, just getting some sugar packets to restock the caddy," I explained, gesturing to the empty holder. "The baristas are really busy, so I thought I'd just grab some." Her eyes narrowed. "Restock? Why would you be restocking anything? You don't work here. You could be putting poison in those packets." My jaw almost dropped. "Poison? Ma'am, I'm just getting sugar. You can see the sugar right here." I held up a clear packet. "I just saw the caddy was empty and I figured I'd help out. Nothing nefarious, I promise." "Don't you lie to me," she snapped, jabbing a finger towards the bustling counter. "The employees are right there. You should have asked them. You're clearly trying to tamper with something, maybe those poison packets again. I'm calling the manager and the police." "You just wait right there." Before I could even process the absurdity, she marched past me, shoving her way to the front of the line, yelling for a manager. I just stood there, dumbfounded. Poison packets, what kind of world was this? Shaking my head, I figured I might as well finish what I started. I grabbed a few more sugar varieties and tried to push the bizarre encounter out of my mind, thinking maybe she was just a bit unhinged. "Nope." A minute later, she was back, manager in tow, a young woman who looked utterly overwhelmed. The angry lady pointed a trembling finger at me. There, that's her. She's been rummaging through the cabinets, contaminating the sugar. I bet it's those poison packets I warned you about. Then she pulled out her phone. The flash went off, bright and blinding. She just snapped a picture of me. My blood ran cold. Hey, what are you doing? She lowered her phone, a chilling, triumphant smirk on her face. If anyone from this coffee shop dies, we'll know it was you. I just stared at her, rage bubbling up in my chest so fast it made me dizzy. Dies because I grabbed some sugar. This woman was seriously accusing me of premeditated murder over a sweetener caddy. Before I could unleash the torrent of expletives I felt building, the young, exhausted manager stepped in. "Ma'am, please, there's no need for that," she said, looking terrified. Then she turned to me, her voice softer but firm. "Look, I'm really sorry, but could you please just leave?" I looked from the manager's pleading eyes to the accuser's smug, satisfied grin. She had won. She had actually convinced someone that I, a helpful stranger, was a sugar packet poisoning menace. I was furious, humiliated, and utterly bewildered. I just nodded, snatched up my multi-drink order, and walked out, leaving the woman basking in her bizarre victory. What a day! All I wanted was a damn milkshake, and I ended up a suspected bioterrorist. You try to do something nice, and sometimes you just get accused of trying to kill people. Guess that's just how some folks roll, huh?
You ever just tried to do one genuinely nice thing? A quick moment of human connection in the mundane aisles of a supermarket, and suddenly you're smack dab in the middle of a full-blown family drama, a police investigation, and a call to Child Protective Services. Yeah, me neither until last Tuesday. This isn't just an r/IDontWorkHereLady story, it's a whole damn saga. So I was doing my usual grind, restocking the energy drink section at my local supermarket. Nothing exciting, just a lot of bending, lifting, and trying to ignore the questionable music choices over the intercom. I reached for a heavy case of those sugary pick-me-ups when I noticed a little kid, probably around 5 or 6, struggling to reach a single can on a higher shelf. She was hopping, stretching, her tiny fingers just brushing the bottom. My first thought was, "Aw, little sprout." My second was, someone's gonna get hurt. Not being the tallest guy myself, but still a good few feet above her, I figured I could easily grab it. I mean, it's just a can of energy drink for a kid, right? Probably for a parent. I reached over, plucked it from the shelf, and handed it to her with a smile. She beamed, a really sweet, innocent smile, muttered a quick thanks, and then darted off down the aisle. Well, that was a nice little moment, I thought, going back to my stacking. Boy, was I wrong. Not even 2 minutes later, I heard a shriek, a genuinely distressed, high-pitched wail from further down the aisle. My head snapped up. It was her. The little girl was a sticky, shaking mess, covered head to toe in bright blue liquid. The energy drink she'd been holding had apparently exploded or spilled after she tripped, and now she was absolutely freaking out, covered in a sugary, sticky mess. My heart went out to her. I immediately went over, crouching down, trying to calm her. Hey, it's okay, little one," I murmured. "We can get you cleaned up. Accidents happen." She was sobbing, pointing vaguely at her feet, a tiny torrent of tears and snot. Just as I was starting to make some headway, trying to reassure her, a shadow loomed. Then a voice, sharp and laced with pure venom, cut through the air. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I looked up to see a girl, maybe 17, glaring at me with eyes that could curdle milk. She was tall, with a permanent scowl etched onto her face and radiating an aura of entitled fury. "You just pushed my sister. What's wrong with you touching kids?" My jaw practically hit the floor. Whoa, hold on a second," I tried to interject, standing up slowly. "I didn't push anyone, I just helped her reach a can." She tripped and it looks like it spilled. I gestured to the crying child, who was now clutching my pant leg, still tearful but at least quiet. "Don't you lie to me," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the cereal boxes. "I saw you, you knocked her down, you're gonna pay for this, you hear me, I'm suing this store." "My sister is traumatized," she kept yelling, getting louder with each accusation, drawing more and more curious stares from other shoppers. It was surreal. I stood there, sticky from the child's desperate hug, utterly bewildered. Seriously, over a spilled energy drink. This girl was on another level. Thankfully, the commotion had drawn the attention of my store manager, Dave. Dave's a good guy, calm under pressure, seen it all. He walked up, his expression a mix of concern and practiced neutrality. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice firm but not confrontational. The 17-year-old launched into her tirade again, practically foaming at the mouth. "This creep, he assaulted my little sister, pushed her to the ground. We're suing Dave, you hear me?" "Suing?" She pointed at me with a trembling finger like I was some kind of monster. Dave, ever the professional, ignored her histrionics for a moment and turned to me. What happened from your perspective?" I quickly explained, keeping it factual. "I saw the little one struggling to reach a can. I grabbed it for her. She thanked me and ran off. A minute later, I heard her scream, came over and found her covered in spilled drink. I was just trying to calm her down when this young lady came over and started yelling." Dave then very gently knelt down beside the little girl who was still sniffling. "Sweetie, can you tell me what happened? Did this man push you?" The little girl shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "And no, he helped me get the blue drink." She paused, then looked up at her older sister with a wary glance. She made me take it. She told me to take it out to the car for her." The older sister's face went from furious red to a pale white. A stunned silence fell over the aisle. "What was that?" Dave asked, his voice suddenly sharp, his eyes narrowing on the 17-year-old. "She's lying, she's just confused," the teenager immediately roared, trying to regain control, her composure cracking. "You're all in on it, this is a setup, I'm still calling my lawyer, you hear me?" But Dave was no longer listening to her threats. He stood up, pulled out his phone, and dialed. "Actually," he said, his voice now like steel, "I think we'll be calling the police, and possibly Child Protective Services." The 17-year-old's face crumpled. She started screaming, truly screaming now, as two police officers arrived minutes later. She was kicking, flailing, protesting as they calmly but firmly escorted her out of the store. It was quite the spectacle. Dave then took the officers to the security office. He showed them the footage, me innocently handing the child a can, the child darting off, then a gap in the camera's view before she reappeared, drenched and crying. Crucially, the footage also showed the 17-year-old gesturing for the little girl to come get the can from the shelf and then urging her towards the exit. It was clear I was cleared. The little girl, now calmer and cleaned up by a sympathetic employee, gave her statement to the police. She confirmed that her sister had been making her steal things from the store for a while now, threatening her if she didn't. Child Protective Services was called on the spot. I watched as they carefully, kindly took the little girl away, promising her a safer place. It was heart-wrenching, but also, for the first time, I felt a deep sense of relief. So yeah, my simple act of kindness, just reaching for a can of energy drink, blew the lid off a much uglier situation. It was a wild ride, from minor accident to full-blown investigation, but I can't help but feel a strange pride. I helped that kid, not just with a spilled drink, but getting her out of a really bad spot. Sometimes you don't realize the ripple effect of a small gesture, and sometimes those ripples can turn into a tidal wave that uncovers something important. Anyway, that's my doozy for the week. Stay safe out there, r/IDontWorkHereLady.
Hey, real quick before the next one, if you're enjoying this, subscribing helps a lot. All right, story number 3 coming up.
You know those days, the ones where you just know a glass of decent Cabernet and a bubble bath are the only things standing between you and screaming into a pillow. Yeah, Aubrey was having one of those. My week as a property manager had been a brutal symphony of leaky pipes, demanding tenants, and a particularly stubborn eviction notice. All I wanted was my wine, my fancy bath bombs, and the sweet oblivion of my couch. So naturally, I made a beeline for my favorite Big Red Bullseye store. I was practically gliding through the aisles, a serene smile plastered on my face, when a storm cloud in human form barreled towards me. Let's call her Karen because, well, she just was. Her face was set in a permanent scowl, arms akimbo, like she was personally offended by the existence of retail. Before I could even register her presence, she was in my personal space, her voice a low, furious growl. Finally, a real employee, she practically snarled, her eyes raking over my work blazer. That useless teenager, Ethan, refused to help me, said he couldn't reach my artisanal lavender body scrub from the top shelf, the audacity. I blinked, still processing. Ethan, artisanal body scrub, my brain, fried from a day of spreadsheets and tenant complaints, struggled to keep up. I managed a polite, if weary, smile. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I actually don't work here. I'm just a customer like you. Karen's scowl deepened, if that was even possible. Her eyes narrowed. Don't give me that. You're clearly in charge. Look at your fancy jacket. You're just trying to avoid your duties. Now come on, get me that scrub, and then you're going to have a word with that boy. My smile faltered. No, really, I don't work for Bulls. I'm a property manager, different kind of manager entirely. I gestured vaguely around the store. I manage apartments, not bath products. She completely ignored me, turning her fury towards a poor, visibly flustered teen employee who was trying to restock a lower shelf. Ethan, get over here. This manager is going to show you how it's done, you lazy littles. The poor kid, who looked like he was about 17 and probably making minimum wage, visibly recoiled. He mumbled something about needing a ladder for safety. That's when my blood started to simmer. I might be exhausted, but I have a soft spot for kids being harassed by irrational adults. Ma'am, seriously, I stepped between Karen and Ethan, my voice firmer now. I am not an employee, and he's doing his job. If it's on the top shelf, he probably needs assistance or a special tool. Karen rounded on me, her voice escalating to a full-blown shriek. Oh, so now you're defending him? This is unacceptable. I want that boy fired, and frankly, I want you fired for insubordination and for lying to a customer. My jaw practically dropped. You want me fired from a job I don't even have? Listen, lady, I can't fire anyone here because, and I cannot stress this enough, I do not work here. I manage apartment buildings. My responsibilities include things like rent collection and pest control, not retrieving overpriced body scrub for entitled people. She stared at me, uncomprehending. You're just making excuses. Your customer service is appalling. I'm going to report you both. She started pulling out her phone as if she was going to call corporate on a complete stranger. At this point, logic had abandoned the building, along with my last shred of patience. My quiet evening was officially ruined. I gave Ethan an apologetic glance, grabbed my bottle of Cabernet and the last remaining lavender bath bomb. Petty, I know, but hey, it was my self-care night, and stomped towards the checkout. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no, she followed me, a relentless, angry shadow, ranting loudly about poor customer service and my supposed attitude problem, all the way through the pet food aisle and into the checkout line. People were staring, of course, but I was so far past caring, I just focused on the rhythmic beep of the scanner. The poor cashier, a young woman who looked like she'd seen it all, shot me a sympathetic look. I paid, grabbed my bag, and power walked out of there, leaving Karen to continue her one-sided tirade somewhere near the seasonal candy display. I didn't look back. I just needed to get home and drown my troubles in bubbles and a nice Merlot. As I drove away, the absurdity of it all slowly started to seep in. My blood pressure, which felt like it had climbed to new heights, began to recede. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sheer ridiculousness. And I had a fleeting, delightful fantasy. What if I had been a manager there? I'd have turned to Karen, put on my sternest professional voice, and said, "Ma'am, your behavior is disruptive and unacceptable. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And by the way, you're fired." The thought made me laugh out loud. I mean, I can't fire her from her job, whatever that is, but the image of her face, if I'd pulled that, was priceless. Some days, people are just a lot, and today, Karen was definitely a lot. I hoped she found whatever peace she was looking for, eventually. As for me, I was just glad to be Aubrey, the property manager, on my way home, not the Bullseye store manager, with my wine and bubbles waiting.
All right, Reddit, buckle up, because I've got a story for you that still makes me want to scream laugh. Ever had one of those days where you just wanted to grab some groceries, but instead you almost got fired from a job you didn't even have? Yeah, me too. So the scene, I was out of town playing dutiful grandson for my grandma. Bless her heart, she was recovering from a minor surgery, and I was her designated gopher, running errands and making sure she had everything she needed. It was a small town, which meant everyone knew everyone, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. One afternoon, I needed to zip into the local store for a few things. I was on a tight schedule. Grandma's favorite soap opera was starting soon, and I needed to get back with her snacks. So I slapped on my noise-canceling headphones, cranked up my music, and zoned out, determined to get in and out without any fuss. I was deep in an aisle trying to decide if organic kale was really worth the extra $2 when I felt a sharp thwack against my cheek. Not a gentle tap, mind you, but a proper thwack. My music cut out instantly as the headphone ear cup was knocked askew. I whipped my head around, genuinely startled, ready to apologize for not hearing someone, assuming it was an accidental bump. "Finally decided to grace us with your attention, dear," a woman snapped, her voice dripping with irritation. She was standing far too close, arms crossed, glaring at me. I pulled my headphones off completely, still a bit stunned. "Excuse me." "Geez, you're freaking deaf, aren't you?" she shot back, her volume steadily rising. "I've been calling you for 5 minutes." My eyebrows practically disappeared into my hairline. "I'm not deaf," I retorted, a little defensive now. I had headphones on. "Well, you're rude," she huffed, stepping even closer. "Now, where are the gluten-free artisanal crackers?" It was then my eyes drifted down to my own chest. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me." I was wearing a bright red t-shirt. No logo, no name tag, just red. The exact same shade of red as the polos the store employees wore. My heart sank. Of course, mistaken identity, the classic. "Look, I don't actually work here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, already feeling the familiar dread of an "I don't work here lady" encounter settling in. Her face, already pinched, turned a blotchy red. "Don't you lie to me, I saw you in the back, you're clearly just trying to avoid helping me." "This is absolutely despicable customer service." Her voice was now loud enough to echo in the relatively empty aisle, drawing the attention of a few other shoppers who paused to stare. "Ma'am, I promise you I'm not an employee," I insisted, gesturing vaguely at my lack of a uniform logo or name tag. "I'm just a shopper like you." "Oh, so now I'm stupid," she shrieked, her voice hitting a register that could shatter glass. She pointed a trembling finger at me. "You are verbally assaulting me. I demand to speak to your manager." Before I could even process what was happening or explain to the small crowd gathering, a woman in a crisp blue polo, presumably a manager, bolted over, her expression harried. She hadn't even heard my side, she just saw a screaming customer and a guy in a red shirt. "What is going on here?" she barked, not at the screaming woman but directly at me. This employee," the customer wailed, pointing dramatically, "is verbally assaulting me and refusing to help. He said he doesn't work here. He called me stupid." The manager's head snapped back to me. "Is this true?" she demanded, her eyes narrowed. "No, I don't work here," I practically yelled back, completely fed up. "I'm just wearing a red shirt, that's it." She thought I was an employee and now she's freaking out. But the manager wasn't having it. "How dare you verbally assault one of our customers and then lie about being an employee?" Her face was beet red. "You are clearly wearing our color. Get back to work and show this customer some respect or you're fired." "Fired from a job I didn't even have." My jaw dropped. "Fired," I repeated, a laugh bubbling up that sounded more like a choked sob of frustration. "Are you serious? You're going to fire me based on what? My lack of an interview? My complete absence from your payroll? My non-existent name tag?" She scoffed, crossing her arms. "I've been working here for 8 years, young man. I know every employee in this store." "Well," I said, leaning in slightly, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "if you've been here 8 years, you must have completely missed my interview, my hiring paperwork, and my entire 8-year tenure here. Because, again, I don't work here." I gestured wildly at my plain red shirt. "Look, no logo, no name tag, this is my personal shirt." Her face went from furious red to a sputtering purplish hue. She opened and closed her mouth a few times, clearly flustered, before snapping, Just get out of my store." She then spun on her heel and stormed off to deal with the now very confused customer and the growing audience. I just stood there for a second, mouth agape, before letting out a disbelieving chuckle. Unbelievable. I grabbed the few items I needed, still fuming, and made my way to the register. As I was checking out, a different manager, Marie, approached me. She had a much kinder face, and her expression was a mix of mortification and genuine concern. "Sir, I am so incredibly sorry about all that," Marie said quietly, gesturing vaguely in the direction the other manager and the screaming lady had gone. "I saw what happened. She gets a bit overwhelmed sometimes." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Please consider your entire transaction on us. It's the least we can do." I mumbled a thanks, too tired to argue, and gratefully accepted the free groceries. As I walked out of the store, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. My grandma would love this story. It was a classic case of mistaken identity, escalated to ludicrous levels, and all because I decided to wear a red t-shirt. Thank goodness for Marie, or I might have just lost my mind. And that, folks, is how I nearly got myself fired from a job I didn't even have, all thanks to a red shirt and a lady who clearly needed a nap. Stay safe out there, and remember, always check for a name tag.
This next one, yeah, it's a good one too.